Well, yes, and of course there are lawsuits right now at the present time against Obamacare because what it does is to require individuals to buy a product, whether you want it or not. And I don't know, it's just like suppose the government said you all have to buy a certain model of a General Motors car. I think people would understand that that's not according to the Constitution. That's not a function of government. But in Obamacare, they're saying you have to buy a certain type of health insurance, as the terms of which are dictated by the government. So that's one of the ways. The whole interference with education is outside of anything that the Constitution authorizes. The federal government has no business telling us what our children should learn in school.
Well,
and that's a matter for parents and local school boards.
Well, now you and I agree, and I'm somewhat studied on this. I've done some research and kept my nose buried in law books for many years, even though I'm not an attorney. But the courts seem to be pretty much looking for legal justifications to go along with the unconstitutional and non-constitutional activities of our government. So
well, that's why I call them supremacists. They think they're supreme over everybody else. That's the title of my latest book, The Supremacists, The Tyranny of Judges and How to Stop It. And I show how they have deviated from constitutional norms and decided that they would impose their own views on the American people. And again, I have made that book available on my website, free. You can download it chapter by chapter, and I urge people to have house meetings and discuss the different types of cases and what the judges have done to really take over the government. You can have one meeting on the religion cases and one on the property rights cases and one on the immigration cases and one on the election cases and so forth. And we need an informed electorate about how the judges have tried to make themselves into the most important branch of government.
And that website is www.eagleforum.org, eagleforum.org.
Right.
But Phyllis, that raises the whole issue. Now, you're an attorney. Tell me, what is possible? Basically, you've got these judges that are turning us into a judicial oligarchy of sorts, and the judges themselves are violating the Constitution, which in my mind makes their rulings invalid. But, I mean, there's a whole domino effect to all of this. How do we stop it? How do we throw a monkey wrench into this massive corruption of our constitutional system?
Well, we need an informed electorate, and unfortunately, we now got a whole generation of people who went through the public schools and didn't learn much about our great country, and so they don't even realize what their kids aren't learning. When I started out in the conservative movement in the 1950s and 60s, we had study groups on communism. And when Ronald Reagan said Russia was the evil empire, we knew he was right because we had studied the Congressional Committee report. But I find that the average American really doesn't know a whole lot about our government and how it ought to operate. And that's why I do urge these House meetings so people can be informed, and then they know how to raise Cain with their representatives when they don't do the right thing.
Well, you know, your response there is a perfect lead-in to my final question for you. Many of the staunchest defenders of our Constitution are aging. Helen Thomas has gone from the White House press corps after half a century for saying the wrong thing. You have been involved in education and politics for almost as long. We're losing many of those who understand the Constitution and the rule of law just through simple attrition. My question is, do you think the younger generation will pick up the mantle of defense for our constitutional and personal freedoms, or have we lost them to the incessant bombardment of video games and technological toys?
Well, I think that we can be encouraged by the Tea Parties and by the people who've come out for all of these rallies. I think even though a lot of the population is not well informed, they know enough to know that they don't like the direction we're going. And I hope they're going to be inspired enough to really get themselves informed. And there are a lot of good sources for that. I urge them to read the material on my website and my books. I write in a method that anybody can understand. It's not too academic.
What is the name of that latest book of yours?
The Supremacist. And that's about the judges who think they're supreme over everybody else.
Now, can you tell us this much? In your book, do you have any recommended solutions to that particular problem?
Yes, I do. And you know, the Constitution did not make the judges the most powerful branch of government. The Constitution made the judges the least powerful. And Congress does have the authority to limit the jurisdiction of what they can deal with. And I think, for example, that Congress ought to stop by saying the courts cannot hear any cases about the Pledge of Allegiance and the Ten Commandments. We like the Pledge of Allegiance the way it is. And we don't want some judge saying we're doing something unconstitutional if we include the words under God in it.
Now, wait a moment. I do know what you're saying to be true, that the Congress has the authority, over the power of courts, but does that actually extend to simple content? Can it be that easy? Can Congress actually come out and say the courts are not authorized to address matters involving this or that?
Well, like the Congress cannot tell the court how to rule, but it can say what areas you can't stick your noses into. And for starters, I would say take off the plate for them the Pledge of Allegiance, the Ten Commandments, the definition of marriage, and the Boy Scouts. Those will be some good things to start with. Judges stay out of those areas.
Now, hang on. Let's just take this to the logical next step. Let's say it's just happened. Congress has somehow or other agreed, both houses, the president has signed it, the law is now in place that says that the courts can't address any one of those issues you mentioned. And somebody files a lawsuit with the Supreme Court. What would happen with this?
The court will have to dismiss the case. And if a judge does something that is outside of his jurisdiction, he can be personally liable for that.
Now, what if the Supreme Court?
They don't want, they're afraid of that. The judge would have to dismiss the case.
So you don't think the Supreme Court would come back and say Congress can't do what it just did for whatever reason?
No, I don't, because Congress has many times limited the jurisdiction, and as a matter of fact, the withdrawal of jurisdiction about the Pledge of Allegiance did pass the U.S. House. It was stopped in the Senate.
Do you think there will ever be, at least in our lifetimes, a direct conflict between the Supreme Court and the legislature?
Well, I don't know whether it will or not. There are ways of there are things we can do, and I think we ought to be very careful of what judges are confirmed. I would hope that, especially if the Republicans take the Senate in November, that they won't confirm any more of Obama's judges. Putting Elena Kagan on the Supreme Court, the most left-wing judge we've ever had.
Oh God, yes. Don't get me started with her. Our guest has been Phyllis Schlafly, and you need to check out. I have not seen the book myself, but I have no doubt you need to check it out. The Supremacists, and go to her website, check the whole thing out, because this is a woman who you really want to know what she has to say. www.eagleforum.org. Eagleforum.org. Phyllis, thank you and God bless you for continuing for so long to do what you are doing to help bring some kind of truth and education and freedom to the American people.
Thanks a lot, and we need everybody this year.
May you continue for another 40 years.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for spending this time with us. Phyllis Schlafly, Eagle Forum, www.eagleforum.org. Thanks so much, and please take good care of yourself. We need you around, Phyllis.
Have a good day.